are a bit of an issue. I think our graduation rates would be higher if we did include GED students or students who did graduate from high school after 5 years, but they are actually considered dropouts. If we are trying to reward performance, shouldn't we include them in the numbers?
Kara?
Yes. Yes, we should. The GED is, it's a graduate equivalent diploma. You know, although the military doesn't accept it, you know who does is technical institutes. In fact, Linear Tech offers a GED class, so when you pass it, you can go to Linear Tech. So I'm not sure, I don't understand that. I don't think a GED is a walk of shame. I don't. I think it gets the child where he or she needs to be quicker and faster, and they're done. And they leave with a high school diploma. I also believe, and I know you as a high school student, I believe in the D. I don't know, does anybody remember the D here in Georgia? I do. We have D's, and you know, so you've got a child, if a passing is 70, and the child gets a 69.4, they fail. So that doesn't make any sense to me. We're like 0.6 away from passing. But grading and integrity, we need to make sure that teachers are and keep their grades with integrity. So I had to add that in. I don't know if that was popular or not, but.
Matt?
You know, the graduation rate thing is, it drives me crazy, just to be honest with you, because it's measured so many different ways across the country, and it's very difficult to know how you stack up against one state to the other. It's the same thing with SAT scores. You know, you hear all this time Georgia's, you know, in the 40s and SAT scores, but nobody bothers to talk about participation rate. You know, Georgia has one of the highest participation rates in SAT around the country, and if you factor in our participation rate, you know, we go from 37 to 11 in performance. So what I'll tell you is, I think a lot of times we get too wrapped up on trying to have these little metrics. What I would rather us do, I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with the GED, I'll just be honest with you, part of it. But what I would like to make sure is if we have students graduating within one semester of their class, I think that should certainly be counted. A lot of our folks get in trouble that way. You know, one of the things that we've done in our community to be successful with graduation rate is credit recovery. You know, I think, you know, we tried graduation coaches and different things, but working with students to do credit recovery, and we had to change some of our policies to say, you know what, you don't need to take that 5th PE class. We're going to let you go pick up that math you blew off when you were a freshman, so that that kid has a chance to graduate on time. And you know, we have to, the biggest thing is we have to look at it kid by kid, student by student, and make sure that we're putting them in the best position to be successful. And I still think a big part of that is going to be making sure that we identify those kids who need to graduate our high schools with a technical skill. We can do more to retain students that way than I think any other action that we can take outside of maybe continuing to invest in online opportunities, especially credit recovery.
Okay. In answer to your question, yes and yes. I think the GED we should use to include prior years of graduation. And I echo your sentiments on, I get so frustrated when I hear about where we are as far as graduation rates. We all want to do better on graduation rates. But we consistently or constantly are looking over our shoulder when we don't even know if we're measuring our graduation rates with Tennessee's graduation rates, with California's graduation rates. You know, we don't, if we're not comparing apples to apples, this doesn't matter. What we have to do is concentrate on what we're doing here, right here in the state of Georgia, and making sure that we are reaching down to those children and making sure individually they are reaching their potential and reaching the standards of Georgia for high school enrollment. That's, at the end of the day, that's what we're looking at. Nancy?
Thank you. Well, I'm sort of surprised by my fellow candidates' answers here because we are comparing apples to apples. We now use a new federally mandated measurement for a 4-year cohort. So they don't calculate it in different ways in different states. It is exactly the same way we measure it. And it is pretty much, as right now, it is the only statistic we have where we can really compare apples to apples. So that's why it's illustrative. And I'm not going to give you any excuses. I'm not going to wring my hands and say, well, you know, I get upset when we talk about it. I want to talk about it, okay? Because when we weren't talking about it, we were telling everybody we had 80% graduation rates, and we didn't. We had a 67% graduation rate, okay? So this is a problem. This is a very important statistic, and it is the only one we have right now that really shows us who's getting it done and who isn't. Because, you know, the CRCT, that's not nationally normed. We can't compare. That's an apples to bananas, comparison there. So we can't do that. This is very important, and it speaks to how we have failed. We have failed to make education relevant, okay? And we have failed to even get, you know, kids to stay in school till they graduate. They do calculate a nationally normed 5-year cohort graduation rate, but we're in the same boat there, okay? So, you know, you can take your pick. I use the 4-year cohort rate because I think we ought to be able to do that, okay? And I'm not an excuse maker. I will not make an excuse. I will say that over and over, and I'm really surprised that folks here don't know that that is a nationally normed apples-to-apples comparison, okay? I know that, and I won't run away from that. Thank you.
And Mary Kay?
I was about to say that and something a little bit different too. What we're doing in the state of Georgia, it seems like it's coming from the State Department of Education. It's really passed through from U.S. All the shots are being called by U.S. Department of Ed. So that needs to change, and including how we calculate graduation rates. I'm not saying we should hide from anything about graduation rates. My dad taught GED for many years, and GED is great. You know, people really want to just get it done, and that's a great thing. But we really need to look at our state. What does our state want to do? Because that graduation rate, it's in this whole convoluted student achievement school report card that, again, does not directly measure student achievement. So all of that, we don't have any, I mean, you gotta know if you're gonna start doing something, what you can and cannot do. It's all controlled by USDOE. It's not the way it should be.